Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to save leader stats on Roblox Studio. So first, obviously you're going to want a game. I'm just going to choose classic baseplate. Then I'm going to come over here. The first thing we want to do is make sure that our game is published. So we're going to click on here. We can save to Roblox. It doesn't have to be published. Yes it does, it has to be published. We're going to say test, save. Successfully saved. Might not have to be published. It has to be at least saved. Just save it. That's all you have to do. Go to the settings, hit the button. If the button's not there, you can skip that step. After that, come down here to security, click enable Studio to access API services. This is important because enables Studio access to game services such as DataStores, which is what we save our leader stat data on to make it save in between sessions. So we're going to save that. Now we're going to make a script in server script service. We'll name it leaderstats. So now we're just going to make a super simple leaderstats script. We'll say game.players.playerAdded connect function player local leaderstats equals instance.new folder player leaderstats.name equals leaderstats local money equals instance.new int value leaderstats money.name equals money. Really simple leaderstats script. 7 lines of code. 6 if you don't include this. So, now we have to define data store. Local data store. Data store is what we'll be using to get, like the API to Roblox's servers, and connect to them to store data. So we're going to say local data store equals game get service data store service get data store leader stats save. Now you can put anything there, doesn't really matter, but you're gonna wanna be able to remember what you put there because it will be important later if you want to be able to save things from other scripts, or if you want to use an external plugin to edit them manually. You're gonna need that also. So now we're gonna make the saving function. So the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna say game.players.player removing connect function player. Now we're gonna define a p-call. So basically what a p-call is whenever there's an error in the script, usually that would stop the entire script from working, but a p-call will contain that error and give you information about it, and it won't stop the script from working. So basically, somebody could come on with malicious intent, come onto the thing, unplug their router, disconnect from the internet, and then that would throw an error to the script. And without a p-call, that would stop everybody else's games from loading or from saving. So we don't want that to happen, so we make a p-call. So we're gonna say local success an error message equals a p-call function player, like that. So now, if there is an error, it will be contained inside this p-call, and then we can use if statements later, or we can use an if statement later to find information about it. So now we're going to say data store set async player.user. Well, we shouldn't have player in here. Player.user ID game player.leaderstats and .money.value. So basically what this does is it attaches this number to our player's user ID, and if we have $37, it will attach that number to our user ID and send that off to Roblox's servers. Then, in just a second, we're going to write a script that whenever they join the game, it will get that information from Roblox's servers and put that information onto the player's leaderboard up here. So now we're going to say local data. We're not gonna give it a value yet, we just have to define it. Then we're gonna make another p call. Local success error message equals p call function. And then we're gonna say data. We're not gonna immediately set it, we're gonna just say data to have as many like fail safes as we can. So data equals DataStore get async player.user ID, and that's it. Now if you want to save multiple stats at once, I'll get into that later. That's a little bit different, it looks different, it's a little bit more complex. But, yeah, I'll get into that later. If you just want to save one, this is exactly what you do. Not quite yet, we still have a few more things to add. So, but we're going to say if success, then print, well actually no, we're going to set their data first. Then money.value equals data. Then we're going to print players data successfully loaded. Else warn error while loading players data error message. Well, error message. And then we're gonna want to do a similar thing down here. Excuse me. If success, then we don't have to give anything a value. We're just gonna say players data successfully saved. Else warn error while saving players data error message. Nice. Alright, so now if we join our game, we're gonna have our money value over here, and let's come up here to view output so we can see this. Where is it? Yes, the player's data successfully loaded, but because we didn't have any, it defaulted to 0. So now we're gonna come in onto the server side. We have to do this from the server side. Like if we're going to change how much money I have, if we try to do it on the client side, it will look like we have more money, but it won't actually change anything on the server side, and therefore it won't save. This is because of a Roblox update years ago called filtering, and it introduced a feature called filtering enabled. And basically, what this does is it's like if a player has some malicious things that they want to do to the games, and they hack it, and they ruin the game. That game is only ruined for them. It doesn't change anything on the server side, and it just ruins things for them without affecting other players. Now, this can be annoying for us, because now when we want to change a player's leader stats, or we want to make a part that everybody can see, we have to do that from the server side, so we have to introduce new features that we never had to do before, which I'll be doing a video about sometime soon, probably. So yeah, we have to do this from the server side. We're going to go to game.players.totalking.leaderstats.money.value equals 37. Now, when we leave the game, players data successfully saved. There we go. Now, we'll come into here. And you see it was 0 just for a little second there, just for a short second, but then it went to 37, which is what I had before. This data editor is a plugin over here. That's not anything that we're gonna do today in this video. I might do something similar to it later, but not in this video. But I've got my $37. It has saved. However, it doesn't always save. See, whenever a player leaves, there's like a very, very small window of time where it can save. And see right there, it glitched. It did not save our player's data. So we want a way to get past that, because this is as efficient as this script can get, at least for one value. It will not get any better, and it will always fail the same amount of times. We got lucky with our first one being a success. So to start to get around this, I'm gonna make it print whenever the player leaves, because it will be able to get this. So it's gonna print player is leaving the game. There. So now, whenever we come in here, it'll basically always be able to get this. There are a couple rare instances where if their computer is like absolutely horrible, then it might not be able to get it, but it will almost always be able to get this. We're gonna leave the game. Yeah, player is leaving the game, and that time our data did save, which is always good, obviously. But now we're gonna start work on the script that saves our data. We'll have it do it like every 10 seconds for the sake of the video, but really you're gonna want to have at least 60 seconds or 90 seconds so you don't overload the service, because if you overload the service, then it will stop taking requests from you for a little bit, and their data will not save anyway. An example of this is, before we actually get started, if we just look up saving leader stats, I guarantee you 90% of these, at least, has this error. In fact, I know for a fact this first one does, because I've looked at it before. Right here, cache.changed connect. Every single time the variable changes, it tries to send a new request. This results in a lot of their data not being saved. So for example, if the player got $100 in $1 increments at the same time, it would only save about 20 of them, because of just it's inefficient. Don't use variable.change. Don't use x.change. It will break things. So don't use it. So we're gonna say, oh well, first we have to define our data store. You have to do that in all scripts that you want to be able to see our data store, and you have to make sure that it's this name, leaderstats. And the best way to do that is just by copying the entire line of code. So now we've got our data store. Now we're going to say game.players.player added, connect, function, player, all that stuff. Now we're going to say wait 3 seconds. Now the reason we do this is we want to wait 3 seconds between a player joining the game and executing the code, because that way it doesn't save our player's data immediately after the player joins, so it won't save their data as 0. That would be problematic. And also, we can guarantee that it can see our leader stat folder in the player, because sometimes if we try to execute this code immediately after the player joins, it won't be able to see the leader stats folder. So now we're going to say while true do data store set, data store set async player.userid player.leaderstats.money.value. Really, you don't have to type all this. You can actually probably just copy and paste this into here. That'll work fine. And then in our while true loop, we're going to say wait 10 seconds. Now, like I said, you're going to want either 60 or 90, maybe even 120. But we're just going to do 10 for the sake of the video. Alright, so now that we've done that, we can actually go in and delete this. We're not going to completely delete it. I'm just going to cut it out so I can put it back in later, but I'm going to get rid of it for now to show that the script is working. So now if we come in here and play the game, we can open our, I don't know what other, we can open our output. We can wait a couple seconds and see, yeah, it's outputting player's data successfully saved. So, like you just saw, I took out the part of the script, and it saves it when you leave the game. So it'll still tell us, no it won't, I got rid of that too. So, we're gonna go into server, players, toy looking, leaderstats, money. We're gonna set this to 56. Now we're gonna wait for this to fire one more time before we stop. And when we go back in, as long as the loading works, then we'll still have $56. So in an actual game, what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna have multiple things saving the person's data. So you're gonna want to try to save it when they leave. You're gonna have backups that save their data every minute. You're gonna have backups that save their data whenever they do something important. Things like that. So now that I'm done talking about saving, we have all of our saving working. We are going to talk about having multiple stats, like saving multiple stats. Alright, so I decided to just change the name of that script to save really fast, but we're going to get started now. Alright, so first what we're going to want to do, and I'd recommend you do this before you like publish your game and make a ton of big changes, because this will get rid of the player's current stats. It won't delete them, but they won't load anymore, because we're loading different stats and saving different stats. So right now we have 56 money, and that's saved under our user ID. But when we do this, it will no longer be saved under our user ID. It'll be saved under our user ID and then a string. So then it will load that user ID and then a string, and it won't get the player's data from before. So when you want to make these, even if you don't plan to add multiple, it's a good idea to just do it anyway, because just in case you end up doing it sometime in the future. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna say we're gonna start with our save function. We're gonna go DataStore, set async player.user_id, and then instead of immediately after that having a comma, I'm gonna say dot dot dash money. So basically what this is doing is it's saving your user ID and then dash money at the end, which is what we want. So this is called a scope. It'll just get your user ID and then your scope, and that's what it'll load and save from now on. Because if you just try to do it, like, a user ID can only be saved under one stat, or one stat can only be saved under a user ID, so you have to add the scope here to make it be able to register multiple, or else they'll just get overwritten every time they leave and rejoin the game. Now we have to do the same thing to here. We have to say dot dot dash money. And now that's it. If we come in here, and we will add another stat later, we just have to make sure this saves. As of right now, we're going to come in here, we're going to go to the server, players, Toido King, leaderstats, money. We're going to set this back to 37. We are going to make sure our data has saved. There we go. Yeah, see, it didn't save that time, it glitched. That's why I waited for that thing to go. Now when we rejoin the game, we'll have our 37 money under our scope of money. So now here comes the adding of another stat part. So we're gonna, for our saving function, we'll start with that. We're gonna say DataStore set async player.user_id, and then we'll set a new scope for this. I'll just call this wins, because why not? And then we'll say player.leaderstats.wins.value. But obviously, this does not exist yet. That path does not exist because there is no wins value. So we're going to go up and add that now. Local wins equals instance.new int value in leader stats. Wins.name equals wins. Now, under here, you can either do it directly under that or under our already existing loading thing. You can really do it wherever you want as long as it's after this. But we're just going to do it right here. We're going to define local data1 because we can't use this already existing data variable that would break things. We have to make a new variable, which we'll call data1. Now we're going to make a new pcall, but again, we can't use our already existing success and error message variables. We could say local success. We can change capitalization, I think, but we're just going to say success1 and error message 1 equals pcall function, and then we're going to say data1 equals datastore get async player.userid and then we're going to define our scope. Well, we're going to define our scope, which is -wins. Now, we're also going to want to add this new scope that we're saving to our other save script, which we'll put right here. We'll just paste it in. That's all we have to do. Now, again, we have to write another if statement for success. We're going to say if success1, then wins.value equals data1. And then we're going to print players data successfully loaded. Now if you're doing this, you might want to say players money data successfully loaded and players win data successfully loaded, so that you know if there is an error, but only for one of them, you know which one is an error. It's easier to find out. And then we're going to say warn error while loading players data ... error message 1. So now if we come back here, oh yeah, and also before we do that, we might also want to add win and money to down here. Error while loading players win data and error while loading players money data. Alright, so now if we come back in here, we're going to have our 37 money from before, and we're going to have 0 wins. So now if I come in here and change players.totalking.leaderstats.money, sorry about that, players.totalking.leaderstats.money, we'll change this to 56, we'll change this to 8. If we come back here, 56 money, 8 wins. Let's make sure our data saves one last time. There we go. There we go. Play. 56 money and 8 wins. Now, if we hadn't added this scope, and we had just tried to save the data to our user ID, then both of these would be 56, because it would have overridden all values with the first value, which right here, see, is our leader stats. Well, that's just a short, I guess it wasn't really short, it's a tutorial on how to save a player's leader stats through DataStores. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully soon I will be releasing information about the giveaway, which will be at 250 subscribers. There will be a video dedicated to it. And then also I have a couple other videos planned, such as how to save players, like, buildings in a tycoon with DataStores. So I hope everybody enjoyed that video. Bye.